Hello and welcome all into the MO podcast. You're here with me, Contumacious Anne, and my lovely host.
Treya.
And today we're going to be talking about Herb Baumeister, who was a wrong 'un.
It's the right one.
He was a right one, this lad. He really was. He was the piss guy.
The piss guy. Like the lampshade guy, but with piss.
Indeed, they've all got a thing.
They have.
They've all got a thing.
But for once, not a mother thing.
No, I could find very little about his childhood. He was quite affluent, and he had quite a normal childhood until his teenage years. But it wasn't due to any overbearing mothers, I don't think.
No,
but,
he didn't have any mummy issues at all.
No. So what do we know about him?
Okay, so he was born on the 7th of April in 1947. And he was really pretty Stepford in his life. He was the eldest of 4 children. They lived in Indiana. He had a fairly normal childhood. He never mentioned anything about having any overbearing mothers or fathers that beat the crap out of him. He was fairly normal, although he was found in his teenage years playing with dead animals and urinating on a teacher's desk. Okay, pissing on a desk is a bit weird, but playing with dead animals, it's just you find something and you poke it when you're that age, surely. I remember being in primary school, finding the boys on the football field playing football with a dead hedgehog. I was absolutely distraught, by the way. But they just didn't think anything of it. It was perfectly normal to them. To be perfectly honest, I think probably pissing on a teacher's desk would have been considered perfectly normal to them as well. You know, I went to primary school in Coventry, so they grew up to be in jail, so, you know.
Yeah, indeed, I can imagine. There is one story from his childhood which I found really, really hilarious, and this could be me. But he was said to wonder aloud what piss tastes like, and then he'd chase the boys around saying, "Give me a drink."
Oh.
Now that's hilarious for me. I'm sorry.
That just reminds me of Little Britain. You know, like, it's detox, isn't it? It's detox. Detox in the body.
I think that's like a genius thing to do. I don't think it's that outlandish, but apparently this is what set him aside from other people, and his peers would withdraw from him.
I think that's a real far stretch, to be honest. I really do. I think they're grasping at straws. It's just a gross kid being gross. For me, I don't think that's... You know, if he was cutting the heads off the local dogs or something, then I'd be like, oh, he was a wrong 'un. But, like...
Yeah.
I just don't think that's overly...
It's not really a triad thing, is it?
No.
It's just... I think that is... all right, maybe to 13, 14-year-olds, it's like, what the fuck? But if you're 18, 21... And I can imagine rugby players do that. I'm really sorry. Nothing against rugby players, but I can imagine that they piss on each other at the drop of a hat.
Oh, God, I've heard what goes on in football changing rooms amongst grown men, and I can verify that kind of stuff does go on. So I don't think that's abnormal at all. I think it's just a teenage boy being a teenage boy. If I'm overly honest, I don't think that's any cause for concern. I don't consider it problematic behaviour at all. I just think he's a guy being a guy and being a bit gross.
Yeah, just a gross kid.
Yeah.
That kid that'd have like snot bubbles.
Well, there was every class, no matter, even when you would change classes, there was still a new kid with a snotty nose and like food covered all over his like school jumper. And he always had dirt under his fingernails. It was always the same kid. It was never a girl. It was always a little guy. Yeah, I remember mine. And do you know what? I'm not even going to say his name because he might still be... He might be a genius right now. I don't know.
No, yeah, I'm going to say if it was in Coventry, he's probably still doing that.
Or he's in jail.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But
So anyway, so Herb wasn't abnormal. To me, he didn't seem like he had an abnormal childhood at all. However, when he got a little bit older, sort of late teenage years, his dad did kind of think, on the down low, that there was something a bit wrong with him. And so he sent him for some diagnosis. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. But there's no record of him receiving any treatment for this at all. I mean, back in the 80s and 90s, mental health and schizophrenia, that kind of thing, it wasn't as well accepted as it is now. It wasn't as big medically as it is now in the noughties. It was just a thing, really, of nowadays. It wasn't really understood properly back then or accepted properly back then, so he was just kind of left to his own devices.
So basically what they had to deal with depression and mental health issues during this time was electric shock therapy. And I don't know if you've seen it, but I'm sure we've all seen the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest scene. And maybe because Herb's dad was a doctor, maybe he understood that it was kind of they used it as more of a dampening effect rather than a health helping effect. So it would kind of knock you for six, and you wouldn't act out as much. Maybe that's why he didn't go ahead with the treatment, just because he didn't really want, in the nicest possible way, a vegetable as a son. Maybe he thought he could kind of beat it out of him, or however he wanted to deal with it. But that was basically what they had back then as their cure for it, an electroshock treatment. And if you haven't seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, have a watch of that actual scene, because it is genuinely what happens. Although nowadays they are using it, and it is being used, and it is a great help for mental health issues. But back then it was just more of, you're going to play up? Well, we'll do this to you. And oof.
I mean, actually, it's even, I don't know if you've ever seen Return to Oz. It's actually electroshock therapy, because Dorothy I know this is off topic, but Dorothy comes out of Oz and she's talking to her Auntie Em and her Uncle Henry about this wonderful place she's been and blah, blah, blah. And they actually, in Return to Oz, it's a lot darker than the original. They send her to electroshock therapy. So even in this 1980s kids film, they are sending this little girl to electroshock therapy in order to cure her of what they think is a mental illness, and she's just being electrocuted, basically. So they did have a much different opinion of it back then than what they do now.
It's funny you should say that, actually, because Judy Garland did have electroshock therapy.
Premonition.
Indeed. She actually had it because she was suffering from mental health issues, but she had it and it didn't go that well for her, because obviously it was kind of this time. It wasn't like Carrie Fisher had it, but she had it very much later on in the 90s and 2000s, which is when a lot of it was more accepted, because it was used in a way, like, it wasn't 100,000 volts going through your head. It was a small amount of voltage going through your head, and just to relax you rather than to scare you into not doing anything again.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know anything about electroshock therapy. I know people who have had it back in the 80s, but I've never had it myself. But from what I kind of grasped about it, we are all just a bunch of electric, and if something's knocked out of sync, you would think that surely being jolted back into sync might help on some level, depending on if they do it right. To me, surely it might have some impact or bearing on your body, at least, if not your mind.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of psychologists are actually prescribing it, but it's frowned upon because of how, well, not frowned upon, but
people in society, rather than not in medical fields, see it as this thing of, if you have it, you are proper mental kind of thing.
It's got a stigma, definitely.
Yeah. But I once put a drawing pin through the power cord to my TV and ended up on the other side of the room, and that wasn't electroshock therapy. That was horrible.
So he wasn't prescribed anything. Electroshock therapy, medicine, nothing. He was just basically told to get on with his life. He went to university, but he did drop out. And then 2 years later, he went back and he actually completed his studies. He was, by all accounts, a hard worker. And then in 1971, he met Julie Sater, who he then married. And they were your typical Stepford family. You know, they had 3 kids. He founded a chain store company called Save-A-Lot, which when you Google, there are a lot of Save-A-Lots, so you kind of have to be selective with which one was his.
I saw that as well.
It's the one with the typo. There's no E in Save. It's Save-A-Lot, which is kind of weird.
Terrible Camelot, isn't it?
Isn't it? It's, yeah. Camelot, yeah. So anyway, this business though, it went off like a shot. It boomed, probably because everybody was skint. It's like Poundland now. You know, everyone shops there because everyone can afford it. It's a pound. So anyway, he wasn't married to Julie for very long. I think it was about 6 months actually, before he was institutionalized. Which probably came as quite a bit of a shock to his wife. Like, she didn't really realise. I don't think they met early doors, and she was kind of like, oh, he's really sweet and he's funny and I have a fun time with him. And then 6 months later, after they get married, he's institutionalised. She's probably kind of thought, what the hell has gone on here?
Yeah, the thing is as well is how, like, from what I've read, how they got together, because he was very insular. He like, obviously, if you're chasing guys around saying, "Can I have a drink?" No one really wants to get to know you. But the reason that they kind of got together is that they both had the same political views. They were both conservative, and they both wanted to run their own business. So that's kind of what they had in common. They were very driven in that blinkered way of, this is what we want to be. We want to be the typical American family, like at the top of the tree kind of thing.
Very ambitious.
So I don't really think she was that bothered about what happened outside of that, if you kind of get what I mean, because there is a story that I read that again, just after meeting her, he had a job as a copy boy at the Indiana newspaper, which his dad apparently got him. And he was trying to be very ingratiating with everyone. He was trying to get on everyone's good side. And he once offered to take one of the big advertising executives to a football game there. And he went, oh, I'll take you all there. And he turned up in a hearse to drive them to the football game, which I think is brilliant.
I do. Nobody complained when the Ghostbusters did it.
Yeah, again, I really don't think that there's anything wrong with that. But obviously, these people thought it's a bit weird, and cars were pulling off the side of the road because they actually thought there was a funeral going on. And
No sense of humour.
Exactly, but he got there in double quick time, so I don't understand what everyone was moaning about. But yeah, so I think Julia didn't really care about what happened outside as long as their vision was going straight forward.
Well, they did spend a lot of time apart, to be fair. And she didn't seem overly bothered with this. They had the 3 kids. His parents had some sort of condo, a lakeside condo that they spent a lot of time in. So I think you're probably right. I think for Julie it was an ambition kind of deal, and that if her material needs were being met, as to be honest, it's just basic human instinct, isn't it? If you've got a nice house, you've got a nice job, you've got lots of money coming in, you've got a happy family, that's all you want.
Don't rock the boat. Why are you going to rock the boat and try and look? If you start looking for things, you start finding them.
You have perfection in your life. You have the Stepford life with your white picket fence. You're not going to upset the apple cart. You just, if that is basic human instinct, that is what we want. That is what we want out of life. So they did spend a lot of time apart, and I don't think whether Julie really was bothered. She did say she loved Herb a lot, but whether she really gave a shit on that kind of level, I don't know. Regardless, they spent a lot of time apart, and she didn't seem that bothered. But she did file for divorce in 1996 because his mood swings became more erratic. He would get angry for no reason. She was afraid of him, and the police knocked on her door and they said, "Can we search the house? We think that there may be something untoward that your husband's been doing." And she flat out said, no, he would never do anything like that. Bugger off. And she sent them packing. Meanwhile, Herb was making a point of every time his wife and kids were away, he was visiting gay bars, and he was convincing guys to come back to Fox Hollow Farm, which was where they lived, which was actually a huge house. It was $1 million house with a pool and acres of land. It was your perfect Stepford house. And he would tell people in gay bars that he was the caretaker and he was looking after his boss's house, and would these guys like to come back and see the pool? So the guys would come back, and there was mannequins all around the pool, which is kind of creepy. And he would tell the guys, oh, it's because the owner doesn't want to be alone. So he's got these mannequins. So it wouldn't look like he was the crazy guy, but the owner was. And then he would, get talking to these guys, get them drunk, do a bit of drugs. And he would ask them if they were into erotic asphyxiation. Because, that's the kind of thing you ask people that you invite back to your house. It's like,
on a first date, yeah.
Hey, do you like being strangled? I do. Should we try it? Yeah, I probably should. I'm just going to... Is there Uber?
They'd been living here for a long, long time, but there were still boxes that were left around. They were unpacked boxes.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. Just don't turn into an Ed Gein.
Don't look at this getting boards.
Just unpack your shit. Even, or at least put it in a cupboard. Don't have it. And a lot of witnesses, like the main witness, said there was boxes everywhere, and it's like, don't have them in sight.
I saw pictures of the house, and it was extremely 90s. I've seen pictures. I can't actually really remember, but I've seen pictures of my house, my mum and dad's house, back in the 90s, and I thought, oh dear Lord, why did they buy that couch? It's fucking awful. It makes me want to vomit. So there is an abundance of 90s awful furniture in that house. However, they did say later on that Julie kind of, not that her job was to do the housework, but he was out and about all day, out for work, allegedly. And that she kind of just left the house to fall to rack and ruin, that she didn't do any... And the house was a tip, apparently. It was on Ed Gein kind of level.
Yeah.
Without the lampshades. So I feel like maybe work, in different senses of the word, kind of got the better of both of them. And she stopped caring about the house. So he would invite all these people back. And he would then, I think what started out as a sex game kind of went awry. I don't think he meant to kill these men, but it went too far.
Yeah.
So what he did was he would take the victims out back. He would burn them and scatter the bones, leave them for animals. The animals inevitably scattered them across the hundreds of acres of farmland. And one day his kids found a skull in the woodland, really, really close to the house. And Julie kind of was like, "Give me that here. What is this crap?" And she marched straight to Herb and she was like, "What is this shit? The kids have just found a skull in the back garden. Like, what the hell, dude?" And I'm fairly sure she didn't say dude. And then Herb was like, "Well, you know, my dad was a physician. It's probably just an old skeleton that he used to use." That's...
Of all the excuses, like, I mean, it kind of fits in. But if you're burying bodies in the backyard, right, when your wife's away, you have a story ready to go, something that's kind of believable, and you go, wow. I mean, okay, you don't want to draw heat from the cops, but of all the stories, it was one of my dad's skeletons. Like, what the? I don't. And she just accepted it.
I know, and you know, he could have made up so many excuses. He could have said like, "Oh, did you know that the Salem witch trials actually reached as far out as this farmland, and they hung and burned witches back on this land. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was the odd skeleton or two." Like, why?
To be fair, yeah, he could have told her anything, but I mean, at the end of the day, just dig a bigger hole. I mean, just
yes,
put your back into it. If you're gonna do it multiple times, just fucking hell.
I know.
Rent a digger or something.
But the fact that she just kind of accepted this and was like, "Oh, yeah, no, he was a physician. No, you're right.
Makes sense, yeah.
Of course, your dad, who isn't even here on this land, would have just discarded a skeleton that you say was in the garage. Yeah, no, it makes total... Yeah, do you want a cup of tea? You just go in the kitchen while I call the police immediately.
Yeah. Is this the same dad that had you committed, by the way? Just so we're clear on that.
It's a bit... Yeah, I don't quite... You know how they always say that the wife always knows, with the whole Fred and Rose West kind of deal?
Yeah.
I feel like she had an inkling, but she was...
If your other half went, "You know what, love, you deserve a holiday. Why don't you go away for 3 months and go and live with my mother, your mother-in-law, and I'll just stay here and watch the business," you'd go, "What now?" I'm not going to say she's complacent, but she's very...
She turned a blind eye.
Yeah. She didn't want to know the truth when it's there. Which, I mean, fair enough. If you actually do love someone and you want to believe that, and love is blind and all that,
Yeah.
maybe. But when it's cold, hard facts, it's like, come on, you've got to, at some point, go,
I mean, maybe it's a case of maybe she thought that... I mean, I think I read somewhere that they'd only had any kind of sexual intimacy in their life on 3 occasions, and that was when they had their kids. Maybe she had an inkling that he was gay, and maybe she didn't want to upset the apple cart, and she just thought, "I'll turn a blind eye to it. This is what he's doing. That's why he wants rid of me while he has these other relationships. And I'm not prepared to sacrifice the life I've got now, so I'm quite happy to go ahead with this and just leave him be." And then maybe when she found the skeleton, it was a case of she was so blindsided by my husband might be sleeping with other men that it didn't even occur to her what else he could be doing.
I mean, it could be. I mean, I've been married for 15 years, and to be honest with you, 3 times is like 2 more times than I've had it. But, but yeah, no, I think she got to the point of she had this. I mean, this house, it was 18 acres, Tudor style. They made $50,000 in their first year of opening.
Yeah.
And it afforded them to open another store. So she was thinking of, wow, we've got 2 stores, we've got this 18-acre ranch kind of thing. They had stables there.
I think it was something that she was more, I'm not going to say fixated, but she was living the American dream, let's say.
Oh, the house was absolutely fantastic, though. It was huge. It was amazing.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, I think she was just blinkered by the view of how she'd got accustomed to living.
Yeah.
And maybe she didn't want the children to think anything bad and everything was going fine, and she kind of like shut down and went, no, it's all fine, everything's fine kind of thing. But yeah. I think subconsciously there was red flags.
Yeah, I do think that she was just so enamoured with the American dream, as you say, that she just ignored the red flags. You know, which I probably imagine many people do, because there's not many of us get to live the stereotypical American dream. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, you know?
You reach for the stars and you hope to hit the moon, but yes. I mean...
Yeah, it's a lot to give up, because people are, by genetics, materialistic. I know we strive for love and family and stuff, but in order to have a happy family and that, you need the materialistic, you need the white picket fence and things like that, you know, so it is important to people.
Of course. Yeah, of course. At the end of the day, I'd sell my own nephew for a for a 3080i graphics card, I swear to God.
Exactly. So it's a big deal. It's a lot to give up. So maybe if you just thought that whatever it was that your other half was doing was, I mean, not strictly within the lines of marital acceptance, but it wasn't murdering people. I don't think it occurred to her that maybe he was doing anything like that. I think maybe he just thought that she just thought maybe he was having an affair with other men.
Of course, something she couldn't satisfy in that way, and she just thought, you know what? I mean, fair enough. Like 3 times in a marriage is like 3 times on a honeymoon. You know what? That's what you aim for, but you get drunk and
fall asleep.
But do you know what I mean? 3 times in a whole marriage, you're like, right, okay, there's obviously issues that I can't satisfy there.
Yes.
As long as he's getting his oats.
Exactly.
He's not beating us. There's no one coming back to the house while we're here and his kids are here, etc.
He's not coming in drunk. He's not a womanizer. He's not a gambler. He's not beating me.
Everything on the surface is nice.
Yeah.
I just won't dive in too much, so it's fine.
Yeah, basically. So, he was in a bar, and he was looking at a poster of one missing person who he had invited back to the house. And this man, we'll call him Terry, because that's what he likes to be known as. Terry sees Herb looking at this poster, and he goes over and he's like, hey, how you doing? And they get talking, and Herb introduces himself as Brian Smart. I like to think that this is Herb being a bit ahead of the times, and this is how he was thinking about his future goals, you know, like specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and timely, you know, the smart meter thing. So anyway, he takes Terry back to his house, or what he says is his employer's house, according to Terry. And they go in the pool, they have a bit of fun, they have a bit of drink. And then Herb tries to strangle Terry. Terry kind of gets away, and he says, I know what you've been doing. I know you've been hurting these men that are missing. I know you've been doing something with them. And Herb kind of goes, you don't know what you're talking about. No, you're ridiculous. And then Terry changes his story, so we don't really know what's the truth. So in one story, he says that he gets away. And he runs away from Herb and he goes to the police and tells the police, this is the man you're looking for. This is the man that's killing all these men that are missing. This is the man you want to look for. On another story, he'll say, so I didn't want him to overreact and kill me, so I kept him talking. We had some more drinks. We had a bit friendly conversation. I stayed the night. And then the next day I went to the police and I said, hey, this is your guy. And then another time he says he formed a romantic relationship with Herb, which was ongoing for a long time before he alerted the police.
Wow. So literally the story that I read was that they had a little bit of autoerotic asphyxiation kind of thing, and then Herb was being a bit too forthcoming with it, so he passed out, and then he didn't pass out, he pretended to pass out, and then when Herb relaxed, he woke up and it scared Herb, and then Herb passed out in a chair because he'd been drinking a lot, so he went and had a look around all the rooms, seen a picture with his family, and he was like, oh wow, this guy's got a family. And then when Herb woke up from being smashed, he said, right, you need to drive him back into town now. But then when they got into town, he went, we'll meet up next week. And Terry went to this appointment, and then when he didn't turn up, that's when he went to the police. So I don't know what he was getting out of this second appointment with him, what he was going to try and do. But after that, after he got stood up, he went, well, bastard, I'll fix his wagon. And then went and grassed on him. And then went to the police and told them what had happened.
The fact that he changed his story so many times and he refuses to go by his real name, it really sparks issues for me.
Because even now, literally, you can't find an article with his real name in.
Yeah.
Because, but this has been and gone. Herb's dead. So what are the repercussions that he's...
This is the thing. So Herb was never tried because he kind of got wind that the police were after him, and he drove his car out to the middle of nowhere on a coast and shot himself in the head. Now, the crazy thing is that the man or the couple who found Herb's body were just your average weekend caravanners. And they came across his body, and the man that found Herb actually said there was no gun by the body. There was absolutely no gun. And you don't shoot yourself in the head and then bury the gun or hide the gun. That's not how it works. So he kind of indicated that there was something else and somebody else involved.
As well, there was, I read a story that he pulled over at the side of the road and he fell asleep in his car, and a Canadian state trooper knocked on the window and said you can't sleep here, mate. And there was video cassettes in the back of his car. Mm-hmm. And then when the body was found, there's no video cassettes.
Yes.
And in the house there was a camera placed discreetly in the pool room.
That doesn't say to me that. I mean, I'm not a criminal profiler. I'm not a CSI agent, but it seems to me. I mean, when Herb he did write a suicide note, and his suicide note allegedly blamed his failing business and his marriage on the reason that he was committing suicide. There was no mention of the murders at all. Now, to me, if you are a murderer and you're going to kill yourself, what have you got to lose by saying it was you?
Indeed, indeed. That's the thing as well. There's no mention of it, and he actually contacted his brother to wire him some money
Yeah.
while he was on the run, because he was excuse me, when this all kind of broke, he was staying at his mother's house, and he travelled north from the lake to go to Canada, and he rang his brother to wire him some money because he explained. I don't know how he explained the situation, but I think he was saying that Julia was coming after him because the business was failing, etc., etc. And it it doesn't seem like the act of a serial killer. If you're looking at like the cases of Ed Kemper, Ted Bundy, kind of Jeffrey Dahmer kind of thing, you don't kind of look for help, if you know what I mean. You just go it alone. So I yeah, it's quite interesting.
I know he basically went into the history books as the I-70 interstate serial killer, but from a personal perspective, I don't buy it. I don't believe he was the killer at all. He wasn't smart enough, he didn't excel enough, he wasn't charming enough, he had your average loner lifestyle, he just hit lucky with Julie and his business. It doesn't fit to me. The fact that Terry allegedly didn't had a relationship with him for this whole time, changed his story 3 times. To me, it seems like Herb was just weird enough to pin the blame on.
From that point of view, definitely. Especially if he's closeted as well, and he's got a family and he's got a business, that is definitely blackmail bait there, isn't it? Really, you look at that and you go, if you were that way inclined, let us say, because I'm not, obviously, and I'm not thinking about doing this, legal reasons, I have to say that. But if you're looking at it that way, and someone who's closeted, and you come across their big secret of, you find family pictures in their house that they, even if they've got this story they invite you back to, you have a look around and you go, this is going in the back wallet just in case anything ever comes up. And if you ask around town and you know they own a business, 2 businesses, and they live on a ranch, it's like jackpot.
Definitely. I mean, I don't know how many interviews you've seen with Terry, but he's the one that comes across as weird to me. He is very new agey. It's a kind of, oh, I feel Herb's spirit kind of deal. I don't buy anything he says, and I think that there was a different killer, that it wasn't Herb, and that Herb was just odd enough to be implicated and blamed for it all. And I just don't buy Terry's story. I just don't. I think Herb, I don't think he committed suicide. I think he was killed because of the absence of a gun and the fact that the witness that found his body was so adamant there wasn't a gun. If you shoot yourself in the head, you're gonna have a gun around your body. Where did it go?
Yeah, of course. That would, it'd only mean the presence of a second person.
Yes. Yeah.
Or someone covering it up. Well, someone covering it up, so
yeah,
the presence of a second person.
It's open and shut to me. Why was that not challenged? Why was it not challenged that witness specifically said there was no gun next to that body? The cassette tapes were missing. Where did they go? That specifically announces the presence of another person. I don't buy it. I just don't.
I mean, as well, I think the thing is, it's like you say, it's the I-70 killer, and all these bones and bodies were found. I mean, surely him not burying them and getting rid of them to a complete degree shows how incompetent he
Yeah.
kind of is at being a serial killer, because obviously if your child can find a skeleton and then the police are going to come in, they're going to find a lot more.
Yeah.
The police are trained in finding them, you know what I mean? Whereas a child is just like playing around and he's gone, Mum, I found a skull. What's that about?
Yeah.
So I think that's how naive he was.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean that kind of does have some traction for me there. With he was used, he was a pawn.
Yeah. I don't think he doesn't fit your stereotypical serial killer profile. He just doesn't. There's nothing about him that fits the killer profile. I think maybe may have been not necessarily the killer, but maybe he knew about the killings and he was going along with them because that's the kind of person he was.
Yeah, he's just an ill person, isn't he?
Yeah.
Really. That I mean, he's schizophrenic. He's easily manipulated, and as soon as kind of all this started happening, the businesses started to go to rack and ruin. But obviously, that's because the stress. I mean,
Yeah.
the stress of it. Like, I don't like Ed Kemper never, even he was working, but he never put in a bad day's work,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like Ed Gein, he was still very good babysitter
Yeah.
when he was babysitting. Do you know what? Even when they were doing these things,
They're very good at
whereas-
pretending that everything's okay.
Exactly, and if you're not used to that kind of like, if you're not like Herb didn't have that ability.
Yes. Yeah.
I think you're right. Maybe it's more stress than anything else that made the business fall apart of him being part of a bigger thing.
Yeah, I think that maybe that was why his marriage started to fail. I mean, from a theoretical point of view, for me, he was gay, and he was struggling with the fact that he was married to a woman, but he was actually he was a gay man, and I think he got lured into some kind of trap where men were dying because of some kind of sexual fantasy that wasn't his doing, but that he was party to. Maybe he wasn't doing it himself, but he was there watching it, or he knew about it at least, and he covered it up, and he just seemed like the perfect person to pin the blame on because he was a little bit odd.
Perfect Patsy. Like the lad that did JFK, Oswald. Yeah, that is actually the way. Now you say it, because when you told me, I was like, you're mental. But now you say it, it is very, very interesting. You can kind of, if you look at it in a different aspect of that, then yeah, because surely you dig deeper. You'd put the graves in, like, literally he didn't put them in graves. He went, like, there's the neighbours on the adjoining property went, oh yeah, there's a load of bones in the creek over here.
Yeah.
So he didn't dispose of the bodies like you would think not a normal serial killer, but like a serial killer would.
Yes. Yeah.
Just seems like your shit accomplice that goes, for fuck, you've done it again. Oh,
I'll just dump them here.
Told you to dig it 6 feet down.
Yeah. And he didn't show... most serial killers don't show any kind of remorse for what they've done. If he killed himself, if he shot himself, it was either because he was afraid he was going to get caught or because he showed some kind of remorse. or because he was killed. That to me does not say he was the killer.
Yeah, there's very few serial killers that have killed themselves. They've been killed by, I don't want to say killed by cop, but they've been pushed someone's hand to kill them.
Yeah.
Do you know what? They've not done it by their own hand,
Yes,
kind of thing.
exactly.
Which is the way they think they're keeping the power.
Yeah.
Because obviously suicide is just a way out. It's a relinquishment of power, I suppose.
I feel like this is maybe, and it's probably a massive stretch, I don't know, but it feels like this could potentially be an innocent man being blamed for the murders that were committed by somebody else completely, that's gone under the radar for decades. There's that potential, you know?
Yeah. We've just broke the case. Wow.
I don't feel like Herb is. I know everybody is all he's the I-70 killer. He's the murderer of a Fox Hollow farm. I don't buy it. I just really don't.
At some point, coincidence is coincidence, because with the I-70, excuse me, he did have business in Ohio, and Julia said, "Oh well, he did used to go to Ohio on business." But maybe sometimes coincidence is just coincidence.
Exactly.
And especially if Terry was in the same city.
Yeah.
As that,
like,
as it was happening, he maybe saw her.
I'm not saying that Terry was the killer, but out of the two of them, I've seen the interviews with Herb, and I've seen the interviews with Terry, and Terry is the creepier one out of the two. If somebody said to me, "Who's the most suspect out of these two guys?" I'd be like, Terry, defo. He's just creepy.
I've not seen the interviews, but I've seen pictures of Herb, and he just looks like an 80s businessman, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
Terry is odd. He's very odd. He's all about the spirits of these people are still here, and Herb said this, and it's all very new agey, spiritualist. It kind of makes you cringe. It's just weird.
Manson-esque.
Very. And they interviewed him because of the hauntings that occurred following the murders. So,
yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, 100%, I do not buy this. What 100%. So Rob, the person that bought the property was called Rob Graves. He bought it in 2009, and he paid $987,000. Right, that is a lot of money, but it was on the market for $2.8 million.
that's a lot of money off. That's a bargain.
Indeed, he made a steal. And in 2017, I think, or in the very recent past, I think 8 acres have been sold for $300,000. So, considering it's 18 acres, it's like not even half. So he's made a third of his money back already on it. So he says this, and it's very, very. For me, it's you're grasping at straws. I think he's maybe seen something in the night and gone, do you know what? Herb's lived here. I can make money on this. He did ask the estate agent as when they were walking round, because he was like, I know something about this house. Is this the thing? And the estate agent said, yeah, this is Herb Baumeister's house. And he went, oh, okay, we'll buy it. But, so he said they saw a man in a red shirt in the woods. And he actually said that Okay, you're going to get Lucky Lou's round. I think his wife saw it, and he said, okay, you're going to get Lucky Lou's because of the history of the house. And for me, when he's saying that, he's already going, it's a tourist attraction for me. Yeah, and he does tours of it, of his house, and I don't know if they're paid tours. I really don't know. I've just seen them on YouTube and whatnot, but I genuinely don't think this place is haunted. There's the ones that I've seen. There's people going there and they're using a spirit box, and I think they don't know how to use a spirit box, because when you use it, like from my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone in the comments, but you're scanning FM frequencies, which FM is where you broadcast radio on. So it scans it over a certain amount of time. And literally one of them is, you can hear it's a Spanish advert. And the guy turns around and goes, "Did you hear that?" And it's like, yes, everyone did. They're selling sofas. Like, even my basic Spanish can understand what the advert is saying.
El burro está malo. Buy sofas.
Exactly. And it's like, oh God, yeah, that guy's got a bad donkey. Just learn. And
Yeah.
it's just, it is.
Yeah, I don't buy the spirit box, to be honest.
They're in the bathroom, in Herb's bathroom, because he only had one, apparently. It's the ensuite bathroom, and that's where he appears all the time. But there's nothing. Literally, there's nothing. But I honestly think this guy, and fair enough, maybe he's a businessman, maybe he wants to make a little bit of money.
Yeah.
But for me, I can't really see anything. And especially as the main protagonist in this, let's say, is in the apartment.
Yes, Joe.
Yes, Joe. So in the apartment where nothing happened, all the murders happened apparently in the pool house, and the bodies were buried in the woods. So that's where you'd think their souls and spirits would be.
Yeah.
But literally, I don't know, 50 metres away from the house, there's an apartment, and Joe has had all these experiences with people running through, and he actually talked to one, and one looked at him and went, "What are you doing here?" And then carried on running. But it's nowhere near where the murders occurred or where anything happened.
No, and the thing for me with Joe is that he was all, "I'll never go back in that apartment. It was terrifying. I was terrified, blah, blah, blah. My dog was terrified." And then suddenly he's corroborating with all of these paranormal explorers, and he's like antagonizing the alleged ghosts, and he's like, "I'm here, yo, haven't you mess me up? I'm not scared of you." And it's like, well, you were scared a minute ago.
You were clearly scared because you didn't want to stay in there. And the thing is, one of the stories as well that he said with the red-shirted man is he wanted to fight him because he was trying to save his dog. And it's like, it's a ghost, dude. What's it gonna do?
Yeah.
And surely your dog has more sense because they can smell better, they can hear better, they can see better than to mess with a ghost. But no.
The dog's just like, "It's an invisible dude, don't worry. Just, you flail all you want, it's not going to hit him, he's invisible, it's fine. I'm just going to sit and watch TV. Strictly's on!"
Yeah. Joe being the hero. "I'll save you, dog."
Yeah.
Dogs like that. I don't really need saving from invisible people, but okay, you have at it.
Crack on, I'll just eat my food over here.
Yeah.
Weirdo. And do you know what, right? Okay, so what got me was, I know a lot of people that buy, I mean, if it was me and I had, the money, and I got a steal of an offer on a massive mansion kind of thing, and somebody said to me, "Oh, by the way, potentially there was lots of murders committed here," if I thought I was in for a good deal, I'd be like, how long ago was it? Was it yesterday? No? Decades ago? Okay. I mean, yeah,
I'll be honest with
that's
you.
bad, but I can deal.
Yeah, for that house, I would not give a shit. I'd be like, I'll clean the blood off the walls myself. Like,
Yeah.
don't worry about it. Like, literally, he's paid like 1/3 of the price for
Yes.
that. And if you see, it's a 5-bedroom mansion with an indoor pool, with stables and an apartment.
Yeah.
I'd be like, you're paying me to take this, right? I don't really give a shit who died here.
We used to live in an old funeral parlour home. I mean, you just, it's not what it is right now. It's not a murder house right now. It's not a funeral home right now. It's a renovated house. It's a steal. I'm buying it. I'll make it into my place. Whatever happened in the past is in the past.
Exactly, and if the ghosts don't like it, they can do one. You know what I mean? It's yeah. I'd be snapping your. I don't understand. Yeah, that's the thing as well. I don't understand how people have this hang up about it. Everyone dies somewhere. Surely, in the history of the earth, everybody has died somewhere at some point.
You could go to the shopping mall and somebody might have died of a heart attack or something there. What, are you just not going to go to the shopping mall anymore?
Exactly. I live in Manchester. Someone's died in the spa.
Every day.
Last week. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. You can't.
I'm not going to go in there again.
A house is what you make it. But the fact for me is that because when the Graveses moved in, they knew the house's history. I mean, they were saying, "Oh, we saw a man in a red sweater, and he looked like a normal person, but he didn't have any legs from the waist down. And then he promptly vanished. Joe LeBlanc, the tenant in the apartment, he's seen him as well in the yard. Joe has also seen a hooded figure in the front yard that was wearing blue jeans, a grey shirt. He had his hood up, he had his hands in his pockets. Right, okay, so I have a list of the victims here. Okay, so we've got Alan Broussard, Roger Goodlett, Stephen Hale, Richard Hamilton, and Manuel Resende. Okay, so these were just the people that were identified. This isn't all of the victims. These were just the ones that were identified. If you'd seen a picture of one of these people, as you would because it was a national story, you might have seen it. What's to stop you from moving into this house and then saying you've seen, say Stephen Hale was plastered wearing a red hoodie. You move into this house and you go, I've seen a man in a red hoodie. Potentially it could be Stephen Hale. You already know the backstory of that property. You already know the backstory of the murders. What's to say you're not fabricating it all?
Exactly. I mean, to be honest with you, I did a little bit of research, and the most famous thing Indiana is famous for is that they invented sliced bread. Like, literally, I was trying to find facts about Indiana, and Wonder Bread started producing sliced bread in Indiana in 1917, I think. Don't quote me on that. But that was number 3 on their top 22 facts about Indiana.
Wow, so they are literally the best thing.
Yeah,
about
exactly.
Sliced bread.
So you're looking at that and going, Indiana, what else are you famous for? Mm-hmm. Oh, Baumeister. He killed 20 people, or whatever you want to say it is. How do we make money out of it? You know what I'm...
Yeah.
It's. I'm not saying that it's like a white bread city and there's nothing else going on there. In fairness, John Dillinger was born there. But between that and Wonder Bread, what are you going to go for?
Seems a little circumstantial to me.
Indeed, I genuinely just think he's just become a tour host, a tour guide in his own house, which he bought for a steal. Which, fair play to him. Not taking anything away from him. Well done. And if there's people
already
out
got
there,
a steal. Does he have to rob people of more money? Seriously.
I mean, if there's people out there that are going to believe it and going to go with it, then I don't think that's on him.
I guess
But-
there's always people that want to see where allegedly Herb Baumeister committed these crimes, even though he's never been tried for them.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'd love to go and see like where Bonnie and Clyde had their last stand, and there's places I'd love to go.
Yeah, but you know that's where Bonnie and Clyde had their last stand. There's photos proving it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no evidence tying this case to the man at all. It's circumstantial, all of it.
And no, that is true. And the fact that he didn't stand trial for it as well. He's still a suspect. There's no one that has been convicted of this. So technically, this still is an open case.
Technically, the murderer could still be at large.
He very well may be, and we may have well solved it tonight.
You can thank me later.
We're coming for you, Terry.
We don't know who you are, but we're on to
No.
you.
We're coming for all new age people.
Yes. Talk about ghosts anymore, and we are coming for you. Maybe I'll just ring Zach Bagans. I could ring Zach Bagans, and I could be like, "Hey Zach, you know that Terry guy that you spoke to? Who was he? Could you give me his address, please?"
After a one phone call. I mean,
I think I could convince Zach Bagans to break GDPR just with my charms and the fact that I'd be like, "Hey, I love animals. I know you love animals. You have a really cute dog. I love Gracie, and you can meet my cats if you just give me this address." He'd probably hang up on me, but it's there, innit?
like I said, shoot for the moon and you'll hit the stars.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the story of Herb Baumeister, who may or may not have killed a lot of people.
See, I've got you thinking now.
So, Herb Baumeister, the piss guy, maybe
The piss guy.
maybe he didn't kill all them people. Maybe it was Terry. Thank you all for joining us tonight. This has been the MO podcast with me, Consummation San, and my lovely co-host.
Treya.
Thank you all, and have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.